Picture this: the Nile glimmers under a pale moon, temples rise like shadows against the desert sky, priests whisper prayers that mingle with the cries of animals and the pounding of drums, and beneath this ancient grandeur, beneath the golden masks and holy hymns, lurked secrets far stranger than we dare imagine. The ancient Egyptians were masters of death, of magic, of eternity, but they were also bound to the flesh. Sex, for them, was more than lust. It was life, it was power, it was the hand of the gods themselves, yet hidden in their myths, rituals, and even everyday life. Lie practices so unsettling, so bizarre, they feel less like history and more like forbidden legend. Tonight, we descend into the shadows of the Nile, to uncover the most bizarre sexual practices of ancient Egypt. Egypt wasn't like Greece or Rome, where love was romanticized, or sin was punished by gods. Here, sex was woven into every strand of existence. It was a form of worship, a tool of magic, a way to control life, death, and even the floods of the Nile. To us, their art seems strange. But look closer. Walls are filled with nude figures, swollen bellies, exaggerated genitals. Amulets shaped like phalluses dangle from the necks of men, women, and even children. To the Egyptians, fertility wasn't a private matter, it was survival. If the Nile failed to flood, famine would come. If women stopped bearing children, dynasties would crumble. Sex, therefore, was sacred, yet also dangerous. Their gods did not hide their desires, they acted them out, sometimes in ways that still shock us today. The Egyptians believed the first god, Atum, stood in a universe of nothingness. Alone, desperate to create, he touched himself. His seed spilled into the void, and from it, the first gods were born. Creation itself began. Not with a word, but with an act of solitary pleasure. Priests retold this story not as myth alone, but as ritual. Some are believed to have reenacted Atum's sacred masturbation inside temples, offering their seed to the gods, believing it would ensure fertility, rainfall, and the rise of the Nile. The cosmos itself was tied to the flesh. Pharaohs weren't just kings. They were living gods. And as gods, they carried the burden of cosmic fertility. Texts suggest that, during certain festivals, the pharaoh would stand on the riverbank and ejaculate directly into the Nile. This wasn't scandal. It was salvation. His seed merged with the waters, symbolizing renewal, ensuring the land would flourish. Imagine crowds watching in silence as the god-king enacted this ritual, his body bound to the rhythm of the river. It was shocking, yet it was life. To us, incest is taboo. To the Egyptians, it was divine imitation. The gods Osiris and Isis were brother and sister, yet also lovers. Their son Horus became the protector of Egypt, so the pharaohs did the same. Brothers married sisters. Fathers married daughters. The bloodline had to remain pure, because to marry outside was to dilute divine power. Tutankhamun himself was the result of sibling marriage. His deformed body, crooked spine, frail frame, was the physical cost of centuries of incest. Yet for the Egyptians, his suffering was divine proof of their god's will. Royal love was not about passion. It was about eternity. Now, we enter darker ground. The embalming rooms of Egypt were places of reverence, but also of whispers. It was said that young, beautiful women who died were sometimes left to decompose before being taken to the embalmers. Why? Because rumors spread that embalmers could not resist them, that in the flickering torchlight, surrounded by oils and perfumes, some violated the dead. Necrophilia, hidden under the mask of ritual. Imagine the silence of the tombs, the sacred body of a princess, and the dark temptation faced by the very men entrusted with her eternity. Egyptian gods blurred the line between man and beast. Horus became a falcon, Anubis, a jackal, Atha, a cow, and in their myths, sex crossed these boundaries freely. Isis, in her desperation to conceive a child, transformed into a bird. She hovered over the corpse of her husband Osiris, reassembled from pieces, and mounted him, reviving his body long enough to become pregnant. A union of necrophilia and divine bestiality written into the foundation of their religion. But not all acts belong to gods. Some belong to mortals, who indulged in strange festivals. The cult of Atha, goddess of love and intoxication, was known for wild celebrations. Men and women gathered to drink themselves into oblivion. Once drunk, inhibitions vanished. Sex became part of the worship. Servants, nobles, priests, all entangled. Texts and tomb paintings hint at orgiastic scenes, blurred lines of class and gender. What we see as chaos, they saw as a holy bridge to their goddess. The Egyptians were masters of spells, love magic, curses, protective charms, but the ingredients were unsettling. Semen, menstrual blood, even vaginal fluids were gathered and sealed in amulets. A drop of blood could force someone to fall in love. A trace of semen could bind two souls forever. Some carried these fluids in small containers, worn around their necks, hidden beneath linen robes. Imagine walking through a marketplace, knowing the stranger beside you might be wearing dried blood or semen as a charm to control someone's heart. One of the strangest treasures ever discovered is the Turin erotic papyrus, dating back over 3,000 years. It is filled with explicit drawings. Naked men and women in dozens of sexual positions. Some ordinary, some acrobatic, some almost impossible. But this wasn't pornography for pleasure alone. Many scholars believe it was ritual art, teaching or mocking, showing the link between lust and power. For the Egyptians, even erotic drawings had sacred weight. Prostitutes often had tattoos of gods like Atha or Biz. Sleeping with them wasn't just pleasure, it was worship. Some women wore beads shaped like tiny phalluses to protect themselves in childbirth. Farmers prayed to Minit, the fertility god, by exposing themselves publicly in his festival, masturbating openly in his honor. Sacred animals, like bulls or goats, were sometimes used in fertility rituals, with rumors of shocking acts performed in their presence. The line between devotion and desire was thin, sometimes invisible. Here's the unsettling truth: what we call bizarre, they called divine. What we see as grotesque, they saw as sacred duty. The Egyptians were not embarrassed by sex. They exalted it. It was in their myths, their kings, their magic, and while we recoil at whispers of necrophilia, incest, and ritual masturbation, for them, these acts weren't sin, they were worship. To touch flesh was to touch eternity. So when you gaze at the pyramids, or the golden mask of Tutankhamun, remember, behind the glory, behind the stone and gold, lay a civilization unafraid of the flesh, a people who worshipped through desire, a world where gods demanded strange offerings of the body. In the silence of their tombs, these secrets still linger, and the most bizarre acts of passion remain carved into the heart of eternity. This was the forbidden truth of ancient Egypt.